Hello and welcome to PTV World's special transmission on the developing situation between India and Pakistan. And we're going to be taking a look at the current developments with reference to what has happened post, of course, the 22nd of April Pahalgam attack. And we have seen that a number of measures, of course, have been taken by India and reciprocal measures by Pakistan. And now we know that there is a lot of diplomatic engagement that both the civil and military leadership of Pakistan have been involved in, putting forward the facts of Indian state-sponsored terrorism within Pakistan and the kind of false allegations and propaganda campaign that was launched as part of the Pahalgam attack. And we have seen that a number of such measures have been taken with, of course, Pakistan's efforts resulting in the UNSC special session, which is extremely important, of course, in terms of putting forward this debate and advocating for what has happened and, of course, accountability with regards to India. How effective this platform will be and how effective other countries such as the US, China, the UK that have offered support in terms of mediation will be, of course, remains to be seen. But we're going to be taking a look in terms of what exactly will these efforts really result in, given what the current circumstances are. At the same time, we also know that Pakistan's security efforts and the security personnel are fully prepared to thwart any untoward incident toward the country. We saw that the Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has also been given a detailed briefing during his visit to the ISI headquarters, and there was, of course, a lot of discussion in terms of conventional and unconventional warfare and the ability of Pakistan to respond to any misadventure by India, which, of course, the country has made very clear that it will do so. However, Pakistan, of course, preferred peace, and this is something that has been communicated at different platforms as well, and has also been something that has been prized to the national and international media as to what has been going on, particularly also the kind of violations that exist at the LOC, and of course the ways in which India's false claims have been refuted. But of course, where we stand today is something that we need to figure out as to how the situation is developing between two nuclear armed states, and of course amid calls for de-escalation, what really will be that proper channel or that proper avenue in which that possibility even can happen, and what will be the way forward in terms of the war of narratives and the war of course, the way that both the countries' credibility is going to be put forward, with, of course, Pakistan being the one calling for an independent and neutral probe into what has happened in Pahalgam. So we're going to be taking a look at all of these situations in the transmission today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been by senior analyst Farrukh and Raja Faisal. And we've also been joined online by foreign affairs expert Mr. Salman Zaidi. Thank you very much, Zaidi Sab, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. I'm assuming he's going to be joining us very soon. But Faisal, let me start with you with reference to how we have seen things develop and in the ways that we have been able to figure out what has really been going on in terms of what India has brought forward. There has been a lot of things that have been brought out in the open by Pakistan. And of course, we've put that evidence across to different diplomatic channels, different international partners, most notably, of course, the UNSC, as well as a major platform that has taken up this issue as well, with the UN Secretary General also calling for de-escalation and offering mediation. But in terms of what we have seen so far, or historically speaking, also the kind of role that this platform has played, what expectations can we draw from the current scenario from the UN to offer support for de-escalation and also to address the issue at the heart of this instability, which is, of course, Kashmir?
Yeah, of course, mediation will be there, Sana, when it comes to United Nations, because UN Secretary General, yesterday's statement from his side, I think it was a clear statement, and that was to tell both of the countries. Of course, Pakistan has reiterated the facts again and again related to this whole episode. It wasn't an initiative from the Pakistan side. Of course, it is entirely from the Indian side. When it comes to this whole incident, I mean, the incident itself, it happens right at the eastern side of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and Pahalgam is a place that is considered as the most secure place when it comes to Indian troops. Overall, in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, there are more than 900,000 troops. And when it comes to this particular area, it has its importance. Reason being, this is quite near to the place which is called Anantnag, and Amarnath Yatra takes place there. And yes, there are religious tourism as well that gets attracted from all over India. And when it comes to this particular area, of course, it has always been considered as an area that is considered as the safest zone. And this very particular place where this took place, that was entirely, I mean, 800 meters away from the incident site, and there was, of course, the whole compound of the military, and they didn't do anything. Of course, there is intelligence involved as well. There is CRPF, and then JK police. They have presence in there as well. And when we overall take the outlook of the this Pahalgam attack, the very first thing that comes into mind is that right after that, it wasn't Pakistan that actually started started having a go on India. It was India itself. Indian media has been portraying as a warmongering media, where war hysteria was going on. When it comes to their retired generals sitting on the TV, they were being they were being asked to do it, and they have been, of course, maligning Pakistan. There was a propaganda scheme that was ignited all over Indian media. And when it comes to the politicians themselves, of course, their behavior since the day one, that has been of a country that does not believe in matured approach towards these kind of incidents. They entirely, without any probe, without any investigation, without knowing the facts, the ground facts, they started hurling statements against Pakistan, and I think world has been watching it. And they even invited other countries as well, like BBC, CNN, Sky News, all of them, asked them to name Pakistan, because Pakistan is behind it. But of course, them countries, they don't believe. And overall, Indian media's, when it comes to the outlook, Indian media's outlook all over the world is being recognized as a media that believes in fake news, that believes in fake propagandas, and their whole media narrative is about smear campaigns. And when it comes to Pakistan, when it comes to Kashmir, when it comes to Muslims living inside India as well, the smear campaigns. And I think Western media is sick and tired of this as well. The kind of stance Indian media is having. That's why whenever there is a news which is being aired on Indian channels, rather than just taking the news from there and as it is putting it to some other channel, the Western channels, they don't do it. Why they don't do it? Because they have the clear modus operandi which they have adopted after years and years of fake news which was being propagated by the Indian media. Now they have come with a resolve that whenever there is a news which is being aired on Indian channels, you just simply have to recheck it and cross check it, and then of course make it public. Otherwise this should be deemed as the fake news, and that's what has happened. And this is why we have been seeing from the Western media as well, the only news which they were highlighting was that India wants to have a go on against Pakistan, and India is claiming that they will attack Pakistan, and Indian media is reporting that. They didn't say that the Pahalgam attack has anything to do with Pakistan. Of course, Pakistan has nothing to do with it. And when it comes to Pakistan itself, of course, Pakistan, and I must appreciate, we are part of that media, and since the day one, we have been, of course, doing not 1 hour transmission, we have been doing 2 hours of transmission. Why? Because we wanted to present the world, because PTV world is being watched by throughout the world. We just wanted to present the truth to the whole world so that they can themselves check in the Pahalgam attack, and they can know what is actually happening in the region, and why Pakistan is acting very smartly and maturely in this whole episode. Because we know that two countries having one of the top 10 militaries of the world, of course Pakistan and India both of them, they have a huge number of militaries, and of course rightly so, because the kind of environment we live in, both of the countries, of course we have to secure ourselves and defend ourselves against each other. Otherwise, if we hadn't had that kind of military muscle,
Yeah.
then of course India is a kind of country that is known for conducting raids, conducting surgical strikes in Myanmar, in Bangladesh, in Nepal, and when it comes to Bhutan, Bhutan never dares anything because they know that Indians, of course, they won't consider them a country anyway.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Pakistan, well, last time around in February 2019, when they crossed the LOC into Pakistan, of course, they were given a befitting reply. And this time around as well, when they were echoing the slogans on their Indian media and in the political sermons for election campaign for UP, Bihar elections, of course, Pakistan said simply one thing, that we don't want escalation, number one, and number two, whenever somebody, whatever the country it is, whenever somebody would dare challenge Pakistan's sovereignty and would dare enter in Pakistan's territory, of course they will be given a befitting reply.
Yeah.
And probably this is why world has taken Pakistan seriously, and Indian, when it comes to India, of course they don't take them seriously at all. Reason being, every now and often they come up with this kind of narrative. And Sana, overall situation, I think world knows that there is trouble in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. That's why this continuous resistance, it has been seen by the whole world. And when it comes to India blaming that resistance to be terrorist, I mean, even in this particular incident, I mean, I'm not representing a government, I'm not representing anyone. It's my personal view, being a journalist who appears on the Indian channels as well. Think about it, that this is a place where even if these people have conducted this raid on the people, I mean, first of all, if there were any of the innocent people got killed, I condemn it. But when it comes to one of the Indian naval personnel, he was killed, his family was spared.
Yeah.
When it comes to Indian intelligence man, he was killed, his family was spared. And there were multiple more people, maybe they were part of the intelligence setup as well, and they had these people who have conducted this raid, they might be aware of these people. I am saying it, if, as India is known for false flag attacks, right? But even if it is not a false flag, for an instant, we can consider it not a false flag attack, and it is an activity conducted by the resistance movement. Still, I believe they tried their best to keep it as a resistance movement, and they carried out against the naval personnel, and they carried out against the intelligence people out there, and they spared their families, and they did not do anything against the families. And to me, I think the whole world knows that there is a resistance movement in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. If it wasn't there, then 900,000 troops wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And if India is keeping 900,000 troops in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, then there is only one reason, that they want to, of course, silence the voices of the people, silence the voices of the resistance movement, silence the voices of the people, the ones seeking freedom from India.
Right, absolutely. Let us also welcome in the transmission Mr. Salman Zaidi, who's joined us online. Thank you very much, Salman, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And I want your take also in terms of what we're discussing, the way that this impacts the PAN's future and the way that the situation is evolving, particularly in terms of the role that the UNSC can play in this regard. We understand, of course, that Pakistan has put forward evidence of what is really going on and has spoken about this issue multiple times before, about what is happening in the occupied valley, and then of course with what has happened in Pahalgam and the kind of false allegations that have been put forward. We know that the UN Secretary General has offered mediation, has called for de-escalation, but in your opinion, how effective has the UNSC been in the past? For example, what has happened in 2019, the kind of unilateral actions that has been taken regarding the special status of the occupied valley. And then, of course, where we stand today, there hasn't been any accountability or consequence. So, what expectations do we have from the UNSC? And is there something in our approach to this issue that can help with the situation?
Thank you for inviting me to the show. I think we're asking this question about the UNSC and the UN's overall efficacy at a time when we see a demise of the international system, of the international rules based order. And in that regard, Pakistan has been submitting its dossiers about Indian activities in Pakistan. We have readouts of terrorist activity, of people apprehended routinely. Now, those dossiers and that evidence has been submitted to the UN and its committees, but the UNSC is notorious for being a place where the veto applies. And although Pakistan is a non-permanent member of the UNSC right now, I think the special sessions messaging will not carry too far. Now, this is a slightly cynical view on my part. Pakistan has done the right job by asking for that meeting. It did the best thing it should have. International messaging and diplomacy must be carried out at the UN. Pakistan has done that. And of what I know, we have launched emissaries to multiple parts of the world. Those delegations carry, important messages. But when I say that the demise of the world order, the UN has been a particularly ineffective organization when we see a bigger crisis like the Gaza and Israel thing happening for more than a year. It is really the bad boys at the UNSC that veto, the upholding of human rights values, of inquiry into terrorism or espionage, or something that's happening in Kashmir. So while Pakistan has done the right thing, I do not see that the UNSC or the UNGA will be particularly effective. That is not to say that multilateralism is dead. We do see a new kind of multilateral interest coming into South Asia via the World Bank, via the IMF. These are the new arbitrators of our conflicted realities. So while the UNSC holds on to its kind of age-old formula of how you fight, you sort of wage politics via other means, I think it is really the multilaterals of a new age that we should be submitting this evidence to as well. Of course, we do know that the IMF has been weaponized against Pakistan. We also do know that the World Bank's conditionalities against Pakistan are motivated by India. So while we combat all of this, we must recognize that Pakistan does not have enough currency among the internationals. These are allies, but not friends. India has better friends among the allies that we have. Does that mean we're all alone? We're certainly not. We're on the right side of history of this conflict, and I think we must amplify our voices, our messaging, and carry it out effectively.
Right, but Salman, then I want to understand, if that's your take, where is it in the diplomatic channels? Do we look for any avenue in terms of support for de-escalation particularly? There's a lot of concern that is being raised by, of course, countries like the UK. We have Iran putting forward its support, the US, China. Aren't these countries that can have some influence over the current situation over India as well as Pakistan?
Oh, absolutely. And you're right, you're correct to point out that this is a very different process. This is not multilateralism. These are good offices provided by the US, China, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who have more sway than anybody else in New Delhi right now, or the UAE to a limited degree. Other sort of embassies have also been playing a role here. They have been very active over the last 2 weeks, asking our people what we'd like to say, speaking to interlocutors in New Delhi. But it is really China and the US and the KSA which have the most clarity and sway among interlocutors there. So to answer your question, Pakistan must provide credible evidence as it has in the past. It must keep doing so, particularly on not just the terrorism case, but also on the IWT. The Indians have ramped up their action on that score, and we can talk about it more if you like. But the IWT is an open and shut case where you will have enough support any time of the year. That's one. Number two, credible evidence of how there's espionage happening, other things going on here. While the countries that are providing good offices may not be able to handle or manage any of that on our part, they can certainly create off ramps. They can certainly create de-escalation where India and Pakistan might get locked into a pattern of tit for tat or counter attack or counter attack. So when the next couple of days, we will, as a kinetic attack is expected, many in Pakistan go that the kinetic attack is expected. We will need the good offices and advice of multiple emissaries, particularly the three countries that you mentioned.
Absolutely. I'll come back to you, Salman. Farrukh, I want your perspective on this because while we're looking at diplomatic avenues and there's a lot of good engagement that has been put forward by Pakistan, given what we have seen and what Salman was also referring to with his opinion about the UNSC or UNGA and different countries, where do you see that possibility of influence happening, and what of the offices of the UN Secretary General, how much of that will carry weight in the current scenario, and then of course our bilateral engagements with multiple countries?
Right. Thank you very much for the question. I think that it is important when we are talking about de-escalation that there has to be some office, some good offices offered by somebody, right? But my concern regarding this is that it is something that will come later. At this moment, it is important to actually bring down the temperatures. India on one side actually seems to be actually getting tired of all this hostility that started, the way the media actually lost its mind, the way the statements kept on coming. But then what happened is that simultaneously they keep on doing these things. Like tomorrow, they are going to go for war drills, and there's going to be sirens everywhere in India. So that also actually speaks to this desire to keep raking up this kind of anger, right? That hostility stays put. On the other side, we have just heard that Indian Air Force is now has been asked to actually conduct exercises on Pakistan-India border. So that also is with everything so volatile and human beings being human beings, what can go wrong, right? Anything can actually create any kind of situation. So it is very important to understand where India is at this moment. Now, while I actually endorse the idea that there was some kind of complacency and there was some kind of false flag in this whole story, otherwise these 4 or 5 people could not make it to the place, and so many people without any security could not be there without some kind of complacency, right? Now, I also believe that Modi ji was not involved in the whole story. Of course, there must be in his orbit because there was a visit scheduled to that region, and that was, cancelled. So, of course, somebody knew that there is intelligence and that visit was cancelled. There, because he was not in the know, at least this is what I think, there have been some big slippages that has failed India's cause immediately. One, you spoke with a sense of entitlement and privilege, demanding that the world, without seeing any evidence, starts believing whatever you are saying. You started blaming Pakistan and then you lost your mind. You haven't actually been able to apprehend the culprits. But what happens? Modi ji, being a smart man that he is, he will not let any good conflict go to waste. So he is using it to leverage other things. For example, you must have seen UK today signed a trade deal with India. And that is important. UK is playing a very important role in trying to de-escalate both sides. So when you are hurt, people actually come and offer you toffees, they offer you ice cream. So India is being offered that as well. Similarly, India is also negotiating a trade deal with America. So there must be, if America is, as we are told, is trying to de-escalate the situation, it might also be trying to listen to whatever India has to say with a renewed interest. Similarly, there is a very interesting news, and you might have seen India's stock market too Adani Samu or Indiana, Adani Group's stocks have actually jumped 12% up. Why? Because Indian papers and international media actually reported that Adani's negotiators are actually talking to State Department to remove, not State Department, Department of Justice, to remove the case that was being built on him. So, and there's a possibility that he may walk, and his nephew also walk scot-free in a few months. So I think that at this moment, all this muscles, show muscles, and all these posturing is essentially to get what they want, and they are trying to do it. Now, I wanted to actually, because I've been a very big critic of Modi and Adani both. So in the past world that we knew, Adani was something that actually worried me, because there was a genuine debate whether the world should have competition or whether there should be national champions, right? And then something happened. America's elections actually changed the whole dynamic, and we saw a world's richest man being an advisor. So I have actually butted my case against Adani. Similarly, Modi, I think, has given a huge indication that he wants to do something for his people, and that is the announcement of caste census. That changes my perspective. If somebody wants to do something for his people, the world can work with that, right? And with all these changes, I think in coming days, gradually, as one by one Modi ji gets what he wants, he is going to de-escalate the situation, and this issue will be cut out by the media. Already you are seeing media trying to actually restrain itself. That a warmonger image, that madness that was dominating their channels is gradually coming down. There must be somebody telling them. But the moment Modi ji actually tells them to shut up, they will.
Right. Salman, I want your take on this too, given how we are seeing the current situation develop, the way it's impacting the BJP government and its leadership. And of course, when we take a look at what scenario is being developed, particularly by the Indian media, and now with the kind of international pressure that exists, how do you see the BJP government actually navigating the situation with its international partners in the region?
You know, the BJP has a remarkable quality of painting itself in the corner every few years. And there is need for a public spectacle each time. This time as well, they have notched up the political rhetoric to such an extent that they are now obliged to create a bit of a spectacle. So while there is credence to what Pitafi Saab is saying, that there may not be an attack the way that we may expect in 2019, a missile shot into trees or something like that. But I think something still got to give politically. I don't think Mr. Modi will just let it go at this. Because the mood on the street is such. I mean, you're seeing what's happening in India. The lynchings, the shootings happening on the street of Muslims, the songs that have come up, those are ridiculous. And there's been lots of comparisons in recent days on how the shrillness on the Indian side is such that, you know, they're asking for bloodletting. Now, this political impulse has been orchestrated. It has now reached a climax where it is asking for something. And it cannot just wait until the next election, which is in Bihar in October. It needs to see something before that. So I think my view is that there will be a spectacle of sorts, a limited something. It doesn't need to be an attack, but I need something that creates a bit of a political story, face saving for Mr. Modi, if you like. As for the outside India, of course, India has become a laughing stock. And among all the sort of the international chatter, all the emissaries that we're hearing, the missions that we are engaging with, everybody's saying India has shot itself in the foot by coming out with the story and then having nothing to show for it. Now, this is a fairly standard Indian exercise, but it has gone even further and started manipulating the waters of the Indus Water Treaty. Now, that's something that will turn India into a unique aggressor, if you like, of the first one of its kind this century, that turns off the water of another country. On other shows, people have come and said that India can't unilaterally turn off the taps, but India can very well manipulate our water, and it is doing exactly that this week. So even while this may be a face saving for India, that we're going to starve them, we're going to sort of decimate Pakistan's crop, we're going to, it makes very effective, compelling political commentary. So for internal audiences, that may be the face saving that India badly needs at this point. The international community has seen that India has lost its diplomatic capital, that its word is not credible. This is also an opportunity for Pakistan to sort of, make gains of India's loss. While India will continue to fight us subconventionally, that is through engaging proxies and intensifying that effort. There was an attack earlier today. There's been multiple attacks through the quarter, and 302 attacks by the BLA alone last year, all supported by India. This is an opportunity for Pakistan to make its very clear case on terrorism while India is losing face diplomatically.
Right, but Salman, earlier you were speaking about how the IWT is a point for Pakistan to actually leverage on, especially when it talks to diplomatic channels and international platforms. And you're also saying that that may be the place where India can actually have some face saving. So how will that happen in parallel?
What I mean to say is, in the absence of India having done anything, it may not fire, it may not attack Pakistan at all. So how do internal audiences that are working themselves into a frenzy go home? Are they just going to watch TV and then find that there is no climax? Of course, this sort of praying for blood demands something or the other. And the kind of face saving that the Modi government can give is that, we'll shut off Pakistan's water.
I understand that, Salman, but my question is that will they be able to do that given the kind of pressure that exists on the IWT?
And obviously, when it comes to Pakistan, Pakistan has categorically said that it would be considered as an act of war against Pakistan.
I've researched water for 15 years. I've worked with water scientists and on transboundary water issues for a long time to know that the Indians have manipulated our water flows for a very long time. They have not shared water data for 20 years. So everything that we're basing our intelligence and our wisdom on is actually flawed numbers. The Indians have never really shared how much water they have diverted. We don't really even know the size of their damage, their wetlands in Kashmir, etc. So this is a story that needs to be discovered. Now, when India says, we will take your water, we will not give you one drop, actually, we need to look away from the political rhetoric on the IWT. We may say it's an act of war, but what safeguards do we have against our crops being decimated this week? It is actually happening. So this is something that India can do very effectively. It's done it for the last several decades. And so, getting into this conversation is a bit of a hairy one, and we can unpack it if you like. The responses on our side, there's been loads and loads of recommendations of the last 25 years on what we need to do. But as of right now, India is diverting our water very effectively. It's holding back all the water in Chenab River, and should it want, release all of that water next week. So, and there you have your entire fields flooded. Now, I don't want to paint a doomsday scenario here, but this is a very serious issue, the manipulation of water. And who is there to police India on it? The internationals are not really listening. They may twiddle their thumbs and say, let's look for off-ramps on conventional warfare, or everything that have to prevent a sort of something moving into the strategic realm. That's what the internationals will rally around and say. But as far as policing India on water is concerned, there is really no one watching this story.
Salman, obviously when we talk about IWT, of course, it is our understanding that there is not two parties to it. Of course, there is a third party that is called World Bank. Can World Bank do anything about it, being the third party?
Not unless there is unified telemetry on both sides. So the World Bank needs to, and we need to ask the World Bank and other governments. The Australians are working on it to create a joint telemetry. Unless we have unified information on water flows, we are just providing recommendations to really nobody. The Indus Water Commission doesn't meet. India is not, and it says it's moved away from the treaty, right? So everything inside the treaty framework asks for information, for compliance, for arbitration. Outside the treaty framework, everything really applies. There's no rules of the game anymore. So till the treaty kicks back in, and I sort of defer to your view that this may perhaps not be a permanent situation. India will have to sort of come back to some agreement on its water, compelled by governments or the World Bank. In the meantime, it will do as much as it can to destroy our crops, increase our prices downstream, and frustration for our policy. We're getting into a budget season. We have a lot of subsidies that are paid to sugar and wheat. We may have to import wheat for the next 2 cycles, so on and so forth. There's a snowballing effect that all of this has. So the Indus Water Treaty right now is really in free fall, and we do not have safeguards right now to prevent India from doing anything.
Right. Thank you very much, Salman, for joining us and being a part of the transmission today. Farrukh, with reference to, of course, the IWT, that's a very, very important and integral part of this entire discussion. And while, of course, we're putting forward this engagement of de-escalation, what's going on in the borders, what's going on in the occupied valley, what's really the narrative or the argument or the base that we need to put forward with the IWT, given what Salman was also saying in terms of the kind of manipulation that already exists that really nobody is monitoring at the moment?
Right. I think that I forgot to say hello to Salman. He's one of my favorite public intellectuals. The kind of easygoing people that you can connect with instantly has been for quite some time. Yeah. But I think that there was a lot of merit to what he said on IWT. I think that you cannot also, by the way, to very quickly answer your exact question, I think common sense. Nowhere else has any upper riparian country done this. There's an example of Brazil that actually is the leader of Americas, right? South America, and it has actually managed its water accords very well, right? So I think that first, if some country really is so mad that it wants to believe that starving an entire population of 250 million people is good, then those people should get their heads checked, right? This is one thing. Then again, going back to the leveraging of this situation, remember that another very important partner when it comes to Indus Delta, when it comes to our diverse systems in South Asia, another very important player is China. And there is a possibility that while they are negotiating through this with everybody, like in America, with UK also, with perhaps Bangladesh also, they might also be trying to put pressure because China is very close to us. And they have had their concerns regarding Brahmaputra, that actually, where although China and India don't have a water accord, but there they are building a dam, right? So they might actually be trying to negotiate that also. I don't see any country doing what India is promising to do in the long run, but then with that kind of mind-eating virus that has actually taken over India, I don't know, I cannot put past anything beyond whatever they're doing. Regarding another thing that Salman said, and where I'm going to disagree with him, and he says that it is not possible for the current Indian government to de-escalate without getting its, even optically. Even if it is in terms of optics, it's pound of flesh. That is not true. The Indian government controls everything, right? It controls media. Within 5 minutes, their media channels will so dramatically change their tune that you will be astonished. Indian government also has this ability to build something and just make it disappear without no notice. Pathankot, when Pathankot happened, similar kind of craze was dominating their channel and they were baying for blood. But these guys found a way because Pakistan was ready to work with them. At this moment, I think it is very unfortunate that Pakistan, one, I'm flattered that the world cares about us. That is so gratifying, and I'm thank you to everybody, right? But the other thing is that India is using Pakistan as a bargaining chip to get whatever it wants, to extort maximum benefits from everybody. That is very, wrong and hurtful. That said, if India wants to change someday, and I believe that this kind of mentality cannot continue, they might want to look for an example. I understand this desire to dominate or this desire to actually talk peace through strength, right? Eventually, if you want to. But if you want to actually learn from one person, and I would call him really a true genius, right? It is Donald Trump. And this is where they lack agency, Indians, or the power. Donald Trump can do whatever he wants. He can be totally irrational at times. You will think that you have lost him or he has lost you, right? But then once it passes, he shows you flexibility, right? On one side it was tariff and the hammer, and he was just attacking everybody. Now he is negotiating, and then he is going to, I assure you, while American media is also very dishonest, they keep on, I'm sorry, this is true, they keep on portraying him as totally irrational actor. He has managed to bring in $8 trillion of investment within these 3 months, right? And this is an example. If India wants to do something, be flexible, be rational. If Pakistan is actually offering to help, when Pakistan is saying, oh, we are ready to see your evidence, we are ready to help in an international probe, you actually have won a very big battle in this aspect because Pakistan is ready to cooperate.
Yeah.
But then you have to tell me that you're going to come and destroy my house. You're going to, decimate everything. My children will be born, without any kind of hope for them.
Yeah.
This is a sick mentality. And sadly, because India has this internal problem of institutionalizing inequality, they also have pushed us into their version of casteism.
Right.
We are the lowest caste. Please don't do that. The world is not going to buy this. If you are good with us, if you are flexible, we are ready to be flexible with you.
Right. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal. We'll be here for the next hour. We'll take a short break. Get back.